An English teacher I had once said that passage analysis extracts a passage beyond its literal meaning and patterns of language. Another says you unpack it to reveal the author's intention. I personally agree with both these statements because I believe that passage analysis is underappreciated. It's when you get that aha moment in even the smallest of things. Hi, I'm Jeffrey, and this is Mixed Metaphors. He was just picking on the poor guy.
Really? That's terrible.
Yeah, I know. So I felt like I had to do something about it.
What did you do?
Well, I went up to him. He shoved me, so I decided to kick him. I went for the shin, but I aimed to. Oh, hi! Oh, God. Oh, God. I didn't even know we were filming. Hi, welcome back. I just wanted to say, despite the fact that To Kill a Mockingbird is a dark novel, that doesn't mean there's some crude humor in it. They're all subtle, but it doesn't take away from the moments themselves. Like what's implied in Chapter 6, what Mr. Avery is actually doing.
At first we saw nothing but a kudzu-covered front porch, but a closer inspection revealed an arc of water descending from the leaves and splashing in the yellow circle in the streetlight. The ensuing contest to determine distances only made me feel left out again, as I was untalented in this area.
Wow, I didn't even know he could pee that far. What are we talking about? Oh yeah, we're talking about passage analysis. In order to understand passage analysis, we have to know this process known as close reading. But what is close reading? In order to understand passage analysis, we need to know this process known as close reading. But what is close reading? As my freshman English teacher put it, it's an explication or an unfolding of a dense but significant passage. We ask, what is the saying? How is the saying this? Through literary devices and such. Importantly, it provides an interpretation in its relation to the whole novel, such as themes. We also need to look at the passage in different perspectives, such as feminist, Marxist, etc. As an appreciation of different perspectives, I'm going to take it over to camera 2. Hi, camera 2. Just like how passage analysis requires different perspectives, as if to give a more in-depth look, I like how you look at me from the side and give me a sense of depth, as if nothing can be taken at face value. Today, we'll be discussing 3 themes: injustice of racism, stereotypes, and perspective. In part 1 of Thomas, he stated how the symbol of the mockingbird represents innocence, and how killing a mockingbird would represent the loss of innocence. I want to add one more person to the list, Scout, because she experiences stereotypes as well. As you recall from part 1, Scout is a tomboy who has boyish pursuits. In this chapter 9 passage, Scout realizes that the boys and girls are separated at her aunt's dinner. We go into her head in this passage.
Aunt Alexandra was fanatical on the subject of my attire. I couldn't possibly hope to be a lady if I wore breeches. When I said I could do nothing in a dress, she said I wasn't supposed to be doing things that required pants. Aunt Alexandra's vision of my deportment involved playing with small stoves, tea sets, wearing an added pearl necklace she gave me when I was born. Furthermore, I shall be a ray of sunshine in my father's lonely life. I suggested that one could be a ray of sunshine in pants just as well, but Auntie said that one had to behave like a sunbeam. That I was born good, but had grown progressively worse every year. At Christmas dinner, I sat at the little table in the dining room. Jem and Francis sat with the adults. Auntie had continued to isolate me long after. I often wondered what she thought I'd do. Get up, or something? I sometimes thought of asking her to prove how civilized I could be. After all, I ate at home every day with no major mishaps. When I begged Atticus to use his influence, he said he had none. We were guests, and we sat where she told us to sit. And she also said she didn't understand girls much. She never had one. So immediately what we see here is a conflict of interest. And the way Lee does it is that she makes this the same goal. Makes it more interesting. So what is this goal? Well, the same goal here is the femininity of Scout. we see the differences here. First off, in what she wears. I could do nothing in a dress. It's a Scout's view. However, Aunt Alexandra says that she cannot possibly hope to be a lady if I wore breeches. We also see her vision of what she wants her to be. She wants her to be this little princess with small stoves, tea sets, wearing an Ad the Pearl necklace when she was born. She also wants Scout to be a ray of sunshine to her father, given the fact that Scout never had a mother. But she also blames Scout for this, as if I was born good, but had grown progressively worse every year. So immediately, we see that Scout experiences gender stereotypes, and she becomes very aware of her femininity. But now, the struggles with her family are happening at Christmas dinner. I sat at the little table. Jem and Francis, the boys, sat with the adults. Auntie had continued to isolate me long after. So immediately right here, we see a direct conflict of interest. We see this because we're comparing Scout, the girl, to boys like Jem and Francis. But the thing is though, we know Scout doesn't have to be a boy in order to be treated like one. She can be treated like a boy if she wants to. Because she's treated the same. Because at home, she eats every day with no major mishaps. Unfortunately, this is not her home. This is Aunt Alexandra's home. And Atticus, unfortunately, cannot use his influence.
And there are more signs that Scout experiences these stereotypes. Like, for example, she hates wearing a dress, whether that be to school or to church. In chapter 4, Jem scolds Scout for having an imagination, which he considers a girl trait. In chapter 4, Dill, obviously a child, asks Scout to marry him, but promptly forgets as he grows closer to Jem. We can infer from here that Dill is being taught Jem's thoughts on girls.
But I kept aloof from their more foolhardy schemes for a while, and on pain of being called a girl, I spent that summer sitting with Miss Maudie Atkinson on our front porch.
In chapter 15, Atticus scolds Scout for disrespecting her aunt. She feels overrun by a feminist influence, as if the pink cotton penitentiary walls were closing in on her. As we learn from Wu Valley, it's not your skin color that has to determine your stereotypes, and we can see this from Scout as well. In this passage, Atticus has already proven Tom Robinson innocent, but the trial still resumes. Refer back to Tom for more information. Right now, Tom Robinson is being cross-examined by Mr. Ewell's attorney, Mr. Gilman. This scene is important for two reasons. One, it is one of the turning points of the novel, and two, it is subtly the darkest scene in the entire novel. So, how does Lee make this the darkest scene in the entire novel? Let's analyze it.
Well, it says it looked like they never helped her none. You did all of this chopping and work from sheer goodness, boy? Try to help her, I says. Mr. Gilmer smiled grimly at the jury. You're a mighty good fellow. It seems. Did you do all this for not one penny? Yes, sir. I felt sorry for her. She seemed to try more than the rest of them. You felt sorry for her? You felt sorry for her? Mr. Gilmer seemed ready to rise to the ceiling. The witness realized his mistake and shifted uncomfortably in his chair. But the damage was done. Below us, nobody liked Tom Robinson's answer. Mr. Gilmer paused a long time to let it sink in. So, this is a tension-filled scene, but how does Lee make the tension? This is how. In these first lines, we can see the education difference between the two, given the lack of proper grammar. They never help her none, I says. This shows that Tom Robinson is not well educated. On the other hand, compare it to Mr. Gilmer, we see he is very well educated, given the fact that he uses proper grammar. Now, line 4 says, Mr. Gilmer smiled grimly at the jury. This forces a lack of control. Oh, excuse me, lack of education with him. A lack of control. Because we ultimately know it's not up to the audience to prove Tom Robinson innocent. It is only up to the jury. Continue. You're a mighty good fellow, it seems. Did all of this for not one penny? So what he immediately does here, Gilmer establishes a sense of control. Tom ultimately has this sense of control now, but we already know, given the fact right here, who has the real control. And then, once the tension keeps pulling, it eventually snaps, and the time bomb goes off. You felt sorry for her? You feel sorry for her? A white jury is not going to declare a black man innocent, because ultimately at the time, how could they see that? There's no possible way. Thus, Gilmer exploits emotions. And of course, people live in a reactionary world. Thus, people will react emotionally. And this ultimately, the fallout is right here. We see here that the dread starts to kick in. Now, this line right here in the below, nobody liked Tom Robinson. This is a result because of segregation. Ultimately, it would be better to see it in the bottom. So ultimately, the white people got to sit in the bottom of the courtroom, while the people on top were the black people who were segregated. And Scout, Jem were ultimately up in that seat with Reverend Sykes. And not only that, he pauses a long time to let it sink in, and that lengthens the dread of the situation.
Injustice is spread all over the novel against black people. Campana acknowledges this.
Cool.
Folks don't like to have somebody around knowing more than they do. There's nothing you can do but to keep your mouth shut and speak the language.
Ideas are ingrained in society, and it's difficult to fight that. We clearly see that in the Macomb justice system. In this passage, Scout has met Brew Radley and is walking him back to his house. After he heads inside, Scout doesn't go back to her home. She takes a look at the Radley porch. She describes what she sees.
Daylight in my mind, the night faded. It was daytime and the neighborhood was busy. Miss Stephanie Crawford crossed the street to tell the latest to Miss Rachel. Miss Maudie bent over her azaleas. It was summertime, and two children raced each other in the room. It was still summertime, and the children came closer. A boy trudged down the sidewalk dragging a fishing pole behind him. A man stood waiting with his hands on his hips. Summertime, and his children fought on the sidewalk in front of Mrs. DuBose. The boy helped his sister to her feet, and they made their way home. Fall and his children trotted to and fro around the corner, the day's woes and triumphs on their faces. They stopped at an oak tree, delighted, puzzled, apprehensive. Winter and his children shivered at the front gate, silhouetted against the blazing house. Winter, a man walked into the street and dropped his glasses and shot a dog. Summer, he watched his children's heart break. Autumn again, and Boo's children needed him. Atticus was right. You never really know a man until you stand in his shoes and walk around in them. So in this shot, we see, obviously, the first thing we see is a lot of imagery. Obviously, so like a fishing pole, it refers to Dill. Man stood waiting with his hands on his hips, this refers to Atticus. They fought on the sidewalk, obviously that's GM in Scout. But notice that also, these situations are very familiar. These are actually situations of the story, of the previous story. I mean, the setting even says it, right here. in front of Mrs. Dubose, around the corner. I mean, all of this actually happens in front of the Radley house, which makes it even more connecting to Blue Radley. We also see, again, the quote right here. Atticus is right. You never really know a man until you stand in his shoes and walk around him. But in reality, just standing there is already enough. You don't need to walk around in the shoes. You just need to take people from their point of view. And that is exactly what Blue Radley saw. He basically grew up with the three protagonists here. And that relates him and sympathizes with the three protagonists. Thus, this is what caused him to act, basically, when Blue's children needed him. Mr. Ewell was going to murder on Jem and the Scout, but he ultimately saves them. And it's because of this sympathy the imagery sets, and the memory it evokes, which is why ultimately this line, the most important line, is the theme of this book.
There it is, the most famous line in To Kill a Mockingbird. Huh. I wonder what types of shoes they had back then. I can almost imagine they have like Converse. Wait, did they have Converse back then?
Yeah, it's been in operation for 110 years.
The more you know. It's really important that we learn to take the time to look at each other's perspectives. Lee portrayed to us what a society that doesn't do that will look like, and it's not necessarily a good one to live in. But this is ultimately what people within the 50 years ago had to live through, and Lee's portrayal warns us against that. Thanks for watching. Class dismissed.